There are moments in life when you feel something stir inside you, a quiet tremor that refuses to be dismissed as chance. It does not arrive like fireworks or the crash of cymbals. Instead, it is a whisper, almost fragile, and yet so insistent that you cannot ignore it. When someone is truly meant for you, the recognition is not a fleeting emotion or an infatuation that flares and fades. It is a resonance that seems to echo in the deepest chambers of your being. It feels ancient, as though it predates your own conscious awareness, like the memory of a song you somehow already know. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who mapped the hidden layers of the human psyche, argued that this resonance is more than mere coincidence. For him, such feelings were evidence of the unconscious mind at work, a mind that holds not only our forgotten memories and buried fears, but also our secret yearnings and deepest truths. Jung believed that the unconscious, subtle and vast, was constantly signaling to us, guiding us toward what we need most in life. And sometimes those signals take the shape of a person who seems to step out of nowhere, yet feels as if they have always been part of your story. This sensation, the sudden pull toward another soul, is not unique to Jung's psychology. Across cultures and centuries, people have described it with different names. The Greeks spoke of Moira, the threads of fate spun by the gods, binding one person to another before they had even drawn breath. In Chinese philosophy, there is the red thread of destiny, an invisible cord said to connect those whose lives are meant to intertwine, no matter how far apart they begin. Native American traditions spoke of kindred spirits, souls that recognize each other across time and circumstance. In each tradition, there is the same recognition. When two paths are destined to meet, the meeting is more than an accident. It is a calling. But the modern world often leaves little room for whispers of destiny. We are conditioned to look for explanations we can measure, to analyze our choices with logic and checklists. We tell ourselves that compatibility is about shared hobbies, financial security, or social approval. And yet, beneath the spreadsheets and rationalizations, many of us have experienced moments that cannot be reduced to calculation. A chance glance that lingers too long, a conversation with a stranger that feels like a reunion. A sense, impossible to explain, that this person belongs in your story. These are the moments Jung wanted us to pay attention to. He warned that in the rush of daily life, we often ignore the inner knowing that rises unbidden. That knowing, though, is not random. It comes from the unconscious, which stores the truths we do not always admit to ourselves. When we feel that undeniable pull towards someone, it is not simply hormones or romantic fancy, it is the unconscious mind recognizing something essential. Have you ever felt it? That unshakable sense of recognition when you first meet someone, as though the meeting were not new but remembered. Perhaps you have stood in a crowded room and found your eyes drawn again and again to the same face, as if by gravity. Or perhaps you have spoken with someone and discovered, within minutes, that they mirrored thoughts you had never dared to say aloud. It feels less like discovery and more like remembrance, as if this person had always been waiting just beyond the horizon of your life. The competitor script calls this a sensation that resonates with your very essence, and it is right to describe it as resonance. Resonance is not noise, it is vibration, harmony, a frequency that two beings share, and when it occurs, it does not feel like struggle or force. It feels like recognition. It feels like coming home. This is where we begin, with the whisper of destiny, subtle yet unmistakable. It is not the end of the story, but the first thread in a much larger tapestry. A tapestry Jung spent his career trying to reveal. What begins as a whisper will soon demand to be heard. We like to think of ourselves as rational beings. We make lists, compare pros and cons, and tell ourselves that love is a matter of compatibility measured in neat categories. Do they share my values? Do we like the same movies? Do we come from similar backgrounds? This is the domain of the conscious mind. Its job is to think, to analyze, to rationalize. Yet Carl Jung argued that the most important choices in life rarely come from logic alone. The conscious mind might be our narrator, but it is not our author. The deeper script is being written elsewhere. Beneath reason lies the unconscious, a vast ocean compared to the narrow stream of consciousness. Jung described it as the keeper of our deepest truths. Symbols, dreams, emotions, and desires too complex or too raw for our conscious mind to handle. The unconscious is not passive. It pushes, nudges, and sometimes shouts, drawing us toward people and experiences that align with our most authentic selves. And when someone enters our life who stirs us at that level, the pull is irresistible. History offers countless examples of decisions that were made not by logic, but by a deeper instinct. Abraham Lincoln often spoke of his gut feelings, warnings or insights that arrived unannounced and later proved correct. The poet William Wordsworth described creativity as something that welled up unbidden, almost as if dictated by forces beyond him. And in matters of love, this guidance is perhaps most powerful. Think of Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt, an unlikely pairing on paper, yet one that shaped the course of American history. Franklin's charisma was undeniable, but Eleanor's presence awakened in him a deeper sense of responsibility, one that would carry the nation through depression and war. The unconscious often recognizes what our lists cannot. Jung believed these signals manifest in subtle ways. Sometimes it is an instinctive reaction, a tightening in your chest, a sudden sense of calm, or an inexplicable surge of energy when you are near someone. Other times it is a dream, filled with images you cannot quite decode, but whose emotional weight lingers long after waking. The conscious mind may try to dismiss these experiences as irrational, yet over time, the unconscious proves to be the more faithful guide. Have you ever wondered why you felt inexplicably drawn to a person who, by all outward measures, seemed wrong for you? Maybe their lifestyle clashed with yours, or they lived far away, or they were from a world utterly unlike your own. And yet something inside you whispered, "Pay attention." That whisper comes not from logic, but from the unconscious. Jung urged us not to ignore it. This is not to say that reason has no role. The conscious mind helps us navigate the practicalities of life. But when it comes to the most transformative encounters, the ones that shape our destiny, it is the unconscious that takes the lead. Jung would say that when you feel that pull, you are not losing your mind. You are, in fact, listening to the part of your mind that knows you best. In the end, the hidden guide within us is not interested in comfort or convenience. It seeks growth. It seeks authenticity. And sometimes it draws us to another person, not because they are perfect, but because they will awaken the parts of ourselves we have yet to discover. There are times when the ordinary fabric of life seems to tear for a moment, revealing a pattern we didn't notice before. You bump into a stranger in a bookstore, and the title they are holding is the same one that shaped your childhood. You dream of someone's face, only to see them on the subway the next morning. Or you meet someone who feels inexplicably familiar, as though destiny had staged the encounter long before either of you arrived. Jung had a name for this phenomenon: synchronicity. Synchronicity is more than coincidence. A coincidence is accidental. Synchronicity feels charged, meaningful, as if the universe itself leaned forward to whisper, "Pay attention." Jung described it as a causal connection, events tied together not by cause and effect, but by significance. And nowhere is synchronicity more potent than when it leads us to people who will alter the course of our lives. History is scattered with such moments. Consider the chance meeting of Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin because he left a window open in his lab and mold happened to drift onto a petri dish. Or take the story of Martin Luther King Jr., who was stabbed at a book signing in 1958. A surgeon later told him that if he had sneezed, the knife lodged near his aorta would have killed him instantly. Years later, King titled one of his most famous speeches, "If I Had Sneezed," pointing out the synchronicity that allowed him to survive long enough to lead the civil rights movement. These are dramatic examples, but they highlight Jung's belief. The world often speaks to us through patterns, not logic. In relationships, synchronicity often appears at the threshold of transformation. You find yourself at a party you nearly skipped, only to meet someone who will change your life. You sign up for a class at the last minute, and the stranger at the next desk becomes your lifelong partner. Even when these stories are told casually, they carry an unspoken awe, because deep down, we sense that such meetings are not random. What Jung proposed was radical for his time. In the early 20th century, science insisted on cause and effect, measurable data, and rational proof. Jung suggested that our inner world and the outer world are bound together in ways we cannot always measure. The unconscious speaks through dreams and intuitions. The universe echoes back with events that match them. And when the two align, we experience synchronicity. Think of it this way. Your unconscious is broadcasting on a frequency. When your life encounters someone tuned to the same signal, the collision feels electric. You may not understand it, but you know it matters. That sudden, profound connection, the sense that this person was always meant to enter your story, is synchronicity embodied. We often try to downplay these experiences, to brush them aside as coincidence. But Jung warned that dismissing them blinds us to the deeper truths they reveal. The universe, he said, is not silent. It responds to the vibration of our inner state. When you meet someone destined to play a role in your growth, the meeting feels like more than chance. It feels like recognition, as if two separate melodies suddenly merge into one song. So the question is not whether synchronicity exists. The question is whether we are paying attention. How many times has the universe whispered to us only for us to drown it out with noise, with doubt, with the insistence that everything must be explained away? To live without noticing synchronicity is to miss the poetry of life. To recognize it is to step into a larger story, one where meaning binds us more than logic ever could. When we imagine meeting the person meant for us, we picture joy, harmony, and comfort. We think of soft laughter, quiet mornings, and the warmth of being understood. Yet Jung insisted that such encounters rarely begin in comfort. They begin in confrontation, not with the other person, but with ourselves. Because when someone truly matters, they become a mirror, and in that mirror we see not only our best, but the parts of ourselves we've worked hardest to ignore. Jung called this the shadow. The shadow is not evil in the Hollywood sense. It is not a monster lurking in the dark. Instead, it is the collection of everything we have repressed. The anger we were taught to swallow, the deserts we were told to bury, the fears we pretend do not exist. Left unacknowledged, the shadow hides in the corners of our psyche, shaping us without our consent. But when we meet someone who pulls us toward them with undeniable force, the shadow stirs. We find ourselves triggered, unsettled, strangely vulnerable. Think of great loves in history. Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera, two artists whose passion burned as fiercely as their conflicts. Their love was not neat or comfortable. It forced both of them to confront jealousy, betrayal, and the limits of forgiveness. And yet, out of that volatile bond came art that shook the world. Their relationship was not only about love, it was about revelation. Each held up a mirror that exposed the other's shadow. Many of us know this in quieter ways. Perhaps you've been with someone who made you question the boundaries you thought were fixed, someone who revealed your insecurities with a single glance, or someone whose presence pushed you to acknowledge feelings you had long buried. It is tempting to call such relationships toxic, to retreat at the first sign of discomfort, but Jung argued that this discomfort is often a sign that something essential is being unearthed. The shadow is not an enemy to be destroyed, but a teacher to be integrated. And love, when it is real, will lead you straight to it. This is why relationships meant for us often feel like paradoxes. They comfort us, yes, but they also disturb us. They inspire joy and provoke fear in equal measure. That tension is not a flaw in the bond. It is the very proof of its depth. In modern life, where romance is often packaged as ease and perfection, this idea is unsettling. We swipe through profiles, searching for someone who makes us feel safe, admired, uncomplicated. But the connections that truly transform us are rarely tidy. They push us to wrestle with our shadows. They demand honesty. They strip away the illusions we've built about who we are. Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In relationships, this means that unless we face the shadow, it will sabotage us. It will project our fears onto others, twist our affections into resentment, and repeat the same painful cycles. But when the right person arrives, when someone truly meant for us holds up that mirror, we are offered a chance to stop running. This is not easy work. It can feel raw, uncomfortable, even humiliating at times. But it is also the work that makes love more than infatuation. It transforms love into a crucible, burning away pretense and leaving something stronger behind. The shadow, once faced, becomes a source of strength. The person who helps us see it becomes not just a lover, but a guide into our truest self. So, if you find yourself unsettled by someone who also feels essential, do not dismiss it. Look closely. Ask what part of yourself they are revealing. Because the person meant for you is not just there to bring comfort. They are there to bring truth. If the shadow is the part of us we try to bury, then individuation is the process of bringing it into the light. Carl Jung believed that every human life carries this task: to shed the false identities we have stitched together for survival and to become, at last, our authentic selves. And relationships, especially those destined to matter most, are often the stage where this drama unfolds. From the moment we are born, we are handed masks. We are told who we must be to belong, to family, to society, to culture. We learn to be the dutiful son, the ambitious worker, the charming companion. Each mask helps us navigate a particular role, but over time we forget they are masks at all. We confuse the performance with the person, and yet, deep down, a part of us longs to be seen without disguise. When someone truly meant for us enters our life, they do not admire the mask. They look past it, sometimes effortlessly, sometimes ruthlessly. Their presence makes it harder to pretend. Have you noticed how the right person can strip away the polished phrases, the curated smiles, the practiced defenses? You find yourself saying things you never meant to confess, revealing fears you swore you'd keep hidden. It is as if their gaze dissolves the costume, leaving you raw, but also relieved. This is the beginning of individuation. It is not always graceful. Jung never promised that authenticity would be easy. To become yourself is to risk rejection. To drop the mask is to admit that the roles you've played cannot capture your whole truth. But love, real love, creates a sanctuary where this risk becomes bearable. The person meant for you does not demand that you be someone else. Instead, they invite you to be who you always were. Think of the figures in history who underwent this transformation. Consider Eleanor Roosevelt, once a shy and uncertain young woman, overshadowed by her husband's towering charisma. It was through struggle, betrayal, and eventually self-acceptance that she stepped into her true role as a global voice for human rights. Or think of writers like James Baldwin, whose love for people and whose suffering at their hands forced him to strip away societal masks and write with searing authenticity. Their journeys echo Jung's insight. The self is not found in conformity, but in integration. Today, the masks may look different, but they weigh just as heavily. On social media, we project versions of ourselves, smiling, successful, endlessly curated. In workplaces, we learn to perform competence even when we are drowning in doubt. In relationships, we play roles we think will make us lovable, often at the cost of honesty. And yet, when the right connection arrives, it disrupts these performances. Suddenly, we want to be seen, not the projected self, but the real one. This is why destined relationships often feel both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because they make us vulnerable to rejection in our truest form. Liberating because if we are accepted, it is not the mask that is loved, but the self beneath it. That moment, Jung believed, is the heart of individuation, the courage to live without disguises. So when someone strips away your masks and insists, gently or fiercely, that you show up as yourself, do not mistake it for cruelty. It may be the greatest gift they can offer, because in the mirror of their love, you are invited to finally recognize your own face. We are conditioned to believe that when something is meant for us, it will come easily. Romance novels end with the kiss, fairy tales with the wedding. Happiness is promised as the natural conclusion. But Jung's vision was far more demanding. He believed that when you meet the person truly meant for you, the connection will not glide effortlessly. It will stumble, clash, and resist. Because its purpose is not perfection, it is transformation. Think of the language of metallurgy. To create steel, iron must pass through fire. To purify gold, it must be melted until its impurities rise to the surface. In the same way, deep relationships pass through their own crucibles. Misunderstandings, conflicts, even heartbreak are not signs of failure. They are the fire that forges resilience. History remembers not only the loves that seemed easy, but those that endured trial. Consider John and Abigail Adams, separated by long months during the Revolutionary War. Their letters, preserved across centuries, reveal not only tenderness but also tension. Arguments about politics, money, and even pride. Yet through those conflicts, their bond grew strong enough to weather revolution itself. Their connection was not defined by ease, but by the willingness to face trials without surrender. On a more intimate level, most of us have felt the unease of questioning love when conflict arises. Perhaps you've been caught in arguments that seem to threaten everything you had built. Perhaps you've stared into silence, wondering if difficulty meant the bond was doomed. Jung would say, look again. Those challenges may not be evidence of the wrong connection. They may be the very terrain where the connection proves its worth. In modern culture, we often flee at the first sign of struggle. We call it incompatibility, convince ourselves that the right love should feel effortless. But true connection is not a frictionless glide. It is a dance that includes missteps. The question is not whether you stumble, but whether you learn to move together again. Each trial, if faced honestly, deepens understanding. Each conflict, if met with courage, strips away illusion. There is a paradox at the heart of love. The very person who makes us feel most alive will also be the one who tests us most deeply. They will challenge our assumptions, resist our control, and awaken the parts of us we least want to face. It can feel unbearable at times, and yet those moments are invitations. As Jung wrote, growth does not occur in comfort. It is in the very discomfort of love, the arguments, the doubts, the painful silences, that we discover who we are and who we might become. So the next time you find yourself in the throes of conflict with someone who feels essential to your life, pause before labeling it failure. Ask instead, what is being revealed? What hidden need, what unspoken fear, what unacknowledged desire is surfacing? The trial is not a detour from the path of destiny. It is the path itself. Because the person meant for you is not there to offer endless ease. They are there to walk with you into the fire and emerge stronger, together. We are taught, almost from childhood, that strength means control. Keep your guard up. Do not let them see you cry. Never show the cracks in your armor. And yet, when Jung spoke about the relationships that truly shape us, he insisted that their power lies in the opposite, in vulnerability. To be vulnerable is not to collapse into weakness. It is to open the door to transformation. In love, vulnerability is the moment you allow someone to see what you hide from the world. It is admitting the fear that you are not enough, the dream you have never spoken aloud, the scar you carry in silence. These confessions tremble in the air, dangerous because they can be rejected, precious because they can be embraced. Jung believed that only through such vulnerability can authentic connection exist. Without it, love is a performance, a mask. With it, love becomes real. History offers striking reminders of this truth. Think of Abraham Lincoln, a man revered for his iron will, yet privately tormented by melancholy. He did not deny his despair, but wrote of it openly, letting it shape his compassion for a wounded nation. Or consider the Japanese samurai, warriors schooled in discipline and death, who wrote delicate haiku about cherry blossoms and grief. They understood that to reveal fragility did not weaken the warrior's honor, it deepened it. Vulnerability and strength were not opposites, but twins. The same is true in our most intimate bonds. The person meant for you is not the one before whom you must always appear strong. They are the one with whom you dare to collapse, to sit at the kitchen table at midnight, confessing that you are afraid of failing, to reveal the parts of yourself you have called unlovable, and watch as they are not only accepted but cherished. That act requires more courage than any mask ever could, and yet it is terrifying. Vulnerability means stepping into the unknown, trusting that you will not be ridiculed, abandoned, or betrayed. Many of us have been taught that love is safest when we withhold, that we should give only part of ourselves, protect the rest behind walls. But walls keep out not only danger, they also keep out intimacy. The irony, Jung would argue, is that the very thing we fear, being exposed, is what allows us to be free. When you are vulnerable with someone meant for you, you discover that your cracks are not liabilities. They are entry points for light. They are invitations for another soul to meet you as you are, not as you pretend to be. Modern culture often confuses vulnerability with oversharing, as if revealing ourselves means spilling secrets to strangers on the internet. True vulnerability is far rarer and far more intimate. It is not about volume, but depth. It is the quiet courage to say to one person, "Here I am." Not the mask, not the performance, me. When we find someone who receives that offering, something extraordinary happens. Two lives entwine not because they are flawless, but because they are honest. And in that honesty lies a power greater than perfection. Because love without vulnerability is an illusion, but love with vulnerability becomes unshakable, rooted not in fantasy, but in truth. So if you feel exposed, if you tremble before the person you love, know this: you are not weak. You are standing in the center of your strength. Vulnerability is not the breaking of the armor. It is the realization you never needed armor at all. Love stories often end at the altar, the embrace, the promise of happily ever after. But Jung would tell us that this is only the beginning, because when someone is truly meant for you, their role in your life stretches beyond romance. They become a catalyst, not simply for affection, but for transformation. Destined relationships are not about finding someone to complete you. They are about finding someone who calls you to become complete in yourself. This is why Jung emphasized individuation, the process of becoming your truest self, as inseparable from the relationships that matter most. A partner is not a finish line, but a mirror and a guide. Consider how history remembers such connections. Think of Carl Jung himself, who admitted that his professional partnership, and at times personal entanglement with Sabine Spielrein, forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about his own psyche. Their bond was turbulent, ethically fraught, and at moments destructive. Yet it also seeded ideas that would later define his life's work: the integration of love, destruction, and renewal within the psyche. Their connection was more than personal. It was transformative, shaping the evolution of depth psychology itself. Or think of Mahatma Gandhi and Kasturba Gandhi. Their marriage was stormy in youth, marked by Gandhi's immaturity and control. Yet through decades of struggle, Kasturba's resistance and strength became a mirror that challenged him to evolve. Their bond was not a portrait of ease, but a crucible that shaped a leader whose philosophy of truth and nonviolence would alter the course of history. These examples remind us that the person meant for you is rarely there to offer comfort alone. They are there to awaken you to a larger calling. In our own time, it is easy to shrink relationships to entertainment, distraction, or simple partnership. We swipe through profiles, watch romantic comedies, and are told that the right person is the one who makes life easy. But when destiny intervenes, the connection feels different. It feels bigger. It pulls us not toward leisure, but toward growth. You do not just share a bed or a meal, you share a mission, a sense of unfolding purpose. Jung's philosophy makes a daring claim that the unconscious arranges encounters not merely to give us companionship, but to push us into alignment with who we are meant to be. This is why the right person may arrive in your life at the exact moment you are ready to change, or at the exact moment you most resist it. Their presence is not accidental, it is a summons. And in that summons, romance becomes something more. It becomes a journey of self-discovery. With them, you do not only fall in love, you fall into truth. You confront illusions, shatter masks, and begin to walk the long road of integration, where light and shadow, joy and pain, strength and vulnerability all find their place. This is why those who are truly meant for us may feel less like fairy tales and more like epics. Their story in our lives is not about ease, but evolution. They do not simply enter our hearts, they reshape our very sense of what it means to live authentically. At the heart of it all, love is not a destination. It is not the perfect partner, the flawless bond, the promise of eternal bliss. Love, in Jung's vision, is a process, a path of becoming. When someone is truly meant for you, they do not hand you completion wrapped neatly in a bow. They hand you a mirror, a challenge, and a key. And through them you are invited to step more fully into yourself. This is why Jung warned us not to mistake difficulty for failure. The right connection will not shield you from conflict, it will demand that you face it. The right partner will not erase your fears, they will reveal them. And yet, in this revealing lies the gift. Because every shadow exposed is a shadow that can finally be integrated. Every doubt confronted is a step toward clarity. Every wound acknowledged is a chance to heal. Think of how many of history's greatest lives were shaped by such encounters. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote letters urging a young man to embrace solitude and struggle, insisting that true love was not about the merging of two halves, but about two solitudes that protect and border and greet each other. His words capture Jung's conviction that love is not about dissolving into another, but about standing more fully as oneself, side by side. When we treat love as completion, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Perfection is an illusion, and those who chase it find only restlessness. But when we see love as transformation, everything shifts. The tears, the silences, the arguments, even the separations, all become part of the journey. They are not detours, they are milestones. The competitor script ends by reminding us that true connection is about authenticity, about being more ourselves than we ever dared to be. Let us push that further. To be truly seen is terrifying because it leaves no place to hide, but it is also liberation. To find someone who allows you to walk in your wholeness, light and shadow, strength and vulnerability, is to find not completion, but freedom. Perhaps even now you find yourself in a relationship that unsettles you, or you are longing for one that feels real in a way surface attractions never have. Jung would say, listen, pay attention to the whispers of the unconscious, the strange coincidences that guide you, the discomforts that reveal your hidden truths, for in them lies the map of your becoming. Love is not about finding someone to fill the emptiness. It is about discovering that you were never empty at all and sharing that fullness with another. It is not about being completed, but about being awakened. The people meant for you will not arrive to save you. They will arrive to call you forth. They will not erase your struggles. They will walk with you through them. And in their presence, you will not only find love, you will find yourself. So when the universe places such a person in your path, do not dismiss it as accident. Do not run from the trials it brings. Lean in. Because destiny is not a promise of ease. It is an invitation to growth. And love, in its truest form, is the companion that walks beside you as you become who you were always meant to be.